really good for me. I thought I would share just a few quotes or statements that have been said during my business career that motivate me. And then I'll just do a lot of talking as we go along. As mentioned, I went to the University of Utah. I graduated, sorry about this, but 1983. That was a long time ago. And everything I did at the University of Utah was on mainframe computers. You even know what a mainframe is? It's a computer the size of this room, and it sits somewhere else, and then you have a terminal that you get to do your work on in black and white, no color.
At least you weren't doing punch cards.
I did punch cards at the start. So I graduate 1983. I don't know if you know when the PC computer came out, but it was made available to the public in 1983. So I graduate with an out-of-date degree. I'm a Fortran programmer, and now the PC comes out. The Macintosh, Apple's Macintosh came out the next year, and so I am out of date, and I wanted to be in the leading edge of things. So my first statement that I put up here, what am I doing here? Says, it's only the view from where you sit that makes you feel defeat. Life is full of many aisles, so why don't you change your seat? Okay, so sometimes we get a little discouraged where we're sitting. I'm sitting there with a degree that's basically useless, but anyway, I go get a job at Sperry Computer Systems. It's up by the Salt Lake Airport. It's called L3 Systems today. And maybe I'll just tell you a little bit. My father worked there. My father worked there for 35 years. My father was a good man. We had a good life. We did things as a family, vacations, but he worked in the same job for 35 years. Retired, he's got a great retirement. Today he's 94 and he's still living pretty good. Gets it about and does well. So that was a great job for him. So I get this job at Sperry right out of school, and I'm a programmer. And I learned really quick I wasn't made to be a programmer. So there's another seat that I'm sitting in thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not a programmer. I've got to change my seat. My cube mate had been sitting in his seat for 12 years. Our manager, who was just over the wall in the cube next to us, had been sitting there for 14 years. And my boss, who was across the aisle, he had higher cubicle walls. He'd been there for nearly 30 years. And I sat there going, look where I'm going to go. I'm going to go from where I am to my cube mate to over the wall to the bigger wall in 30 years. I charted out how much money I'd be making in 35 years, and I said, I've got to do something different. I have a good friend, a mentor, 20 years older than me. I was talking to him, and he said, Rick, you don't look happy. And I said, I'm not. I'm frustrated. I need to do something different. He goes, what do you know how to do? And I said, well, all through college, all through high school, I installed automatic swimming pool covers. And he shared this thought with me. You can't read that very well. It says, when you work for someone else, you make what they think you're worth. When you work for yourself, you make what you're worth. And he said, so you're making what Sperry thinks you're worth right now. And do you think you're worth more or less? And I said, well, I think more. And he goes, well, you need to make a change. So he came back a couple of weeks later and he said, Rick, I'm going to give you an offer that only a fool would turn down. So how does that make me feel? I'm going, all right, I've got to accept this. He said, why don't you quit your job and come work for me for this winter? And you help put my business onto computers. Remember, PCs had just come out. No one knew what to do with them. He goes, if you can help get my business, he was a commercial developer. He says, you can help me get it on computers, I'll help you organize your business, and in the spring you can quit and go and start doing pool covers. He happened to have a pool cover. We were up at his house, and he goes, I got lots of neighbors. We'll call all my neighbors, and we'll get you all this work to get going. So I quit my job. My dad thought I was totally nuts. He said, son, you had 35 years to go and you'd be set. And I said, I couldn't do it, Dad. So I did pool covers. Great job. I installed these things all over this country. I competed with the company that I worked through high school in Salt Lake. I worked with a company out of California. The frustrating part about this business is that, well, my dream was to work hard all summer and to ski all winter. That was the plan. But I didn't quite make enough money. And the real frustrating thing was every fall I would lose my employees and I'd have to retrain them every spring. And this went on and on I did it for 5 years, about 6 in the end. But I love it. I've got a passion for pool covers. It is a fun business. It's a great industry. But it was time to make another change. So I was trying to figure out what to do. And I had a few options. I thought, all right, I need to go into manufacturing so that in the wintertime, my employees, I can keep them, they can build these things. Or I need to get a different job. So I decided to go and get my MBA to get a little more skill and knowledge outside of computer science. So I went down to BYU. It was an executive program because I still did pool covers all during the day, and at night I would go to school. After about a year, I had an opportunity to take a job at Novell. And many of you don't even know who Novell is. Novell at that time was the #1 networking company in the world. They exploded. That was the most sought after, fun company to be with, and that's where I wanted to go if I didn't do pool covers, and I got a great offer, so I left and did that. But before, I got to put up another quote, I think, here. I should mention that pool cover company paid my whole way through. Oh, man, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Sorry. So anyway, I went and started working for Novell. We'll get to this in a second. I jumped the gun. So I worked for Novell. Loved that company. It was exciting. They were growing so fast, and I loved my job. My job at Novell was working, my mind went blank, manager of information services for Novell. My job was to get updates of software to all of our clients over online means. Back then, there was no internet, folks. It was CompuServe, who you probably don't know. They were the world's largest online service. There was America Online, you've probably heard of that one. And back then, there was something called ANS. That was the internet. It started in Honolulu, the University of Hawaii, went to California. They had a hub at the University of Utah, Chicago, Boston, London, and Germany. And we'd upload files there, and companies could download updates and so forth. So that was the early internet. While doing all this distribution of files, all of a sudden a guy by the name of Tim Berners-Lee, he invented the World Wide Web in CERN, Switzerland. Mark Andreessen, the University of Illinois in Champaign, Illinois, invented the browser. All of a sudden you've got this thing called the World Wide Web with the internet. My team, I had a guy that was actually in Germany that was working on that server. We built Novell's website, and all of a sudden this internet thing started to go, and we were pretty excited. One of my coworkers comes to me and he says, Rick, he's got the Utah travel guide. He goes, let's put this on the internet and own Utah on the internet. And we thought, this is cool. All right, let's do it. But we needed a tech person because I didn't want to go back into tech, so we got another guy, Rich Farr. That brings up this question here about, can you make it with partners? How can you make it successfully? A lot of people say, partners are horrible. Well, I had 2 of the greatest partners. They're still my best friends today. As you can see, we love to do things. We love to Jeep. So we got this idea to start Utah.com. We went out and bought a computer. We went out and bought a scanner, and we were working at night. We all worked at Novell during the day, and we moonlighted. We cut out all the pictures, we scanned them in, we built this website, and we were so excited. We went up to the Utah Travel Council, met with Dean Reeder, and said, we'd like to put Utah on the internet. And he goes, never heard of it. What's the internet? Are you kidding? You know, it was back in 1993. I don't know how many of you were born in 93, but early days. He goes, we don't, and then we talked about, you know, we could email something to you. He didn't even have email. The state was so far behind, in my opinion. But anyway, we talked with him, we showed him this, we explained what the internet was going to be, and it was coming, and he goes, this is so good. We said, look, we will do this for the state for $200,000 a year. And then he laughed. He said, I've got a budget of $500,000, and I've got to market Utah to the world, and I don't have a dime to give you guys. Well, talk about being in the wrong seat. Our bubbles popped. We had worked so hard for this. And so we ended up getting what I call an exclusive publishing partner with the state of Utah. We said, well, this internet's going to take off. We want to own Utah. We want to partner with you. We're going to run Utah.com. And so they signed an agreement with us. We'd be their online publishing partner because they had no idea what the internet was going to be. So we signed that deal and we set out to find money. And we had the same problem as we're going out talking to investors. No one knew what the internet was. So I contacted CompuServe since I had been working really close with them. They're in Columbus, Ohio. Got on a plane. I used up all my vacation days, mind you, to do this. Flew out to Columbus, started talking to them. We'd put together a business plan. It wasn't perfect, but the three of us wrote it up. We had a pro forma, knew exactly how much money we were going to make and all these things. Took it out there, and CompuServe gave us a letter of intent, said, we're interested. We'll fund you. I'll tell you, I came back so stoked. This is a major, it's a $1 billion corporation. Well, you will find if you work with a $1 billion corporation, things don't happen the next day. It took us 8 months. Now let me go back to this statement here about my partners. What we did is we divided this company up into thirds. Now, I was the oldest, and so they gave me one more point. I had 34%, and they each had 33%. We said, we're all jumping in this together. No one's putting in more money. No one's putting in more time. We're going even. We all had different personalities. My partner, Mike, if I said we were struggling, we needed to maybe reduce the number of employees, he'd have 5 people fired before we walked out the door. And I'd always have to bring them back and say, you're not fired. And Mike, settle down. And Rich was a technical guru that just, you can't live without him. So we worked very well together. And so, I come back to this, you can make it work with partners. And that was 20 plus years ago. And we're still great friends and love to do jeeping and things together. All right, where was I? I was jumping around, and so I go back to, we're working this thing with CompuServe, and this is a great story. This is the one I didn't want on TV here, but anyway. We're going back and forth on contract negotiations. They send things to my attorney, we send it back to their attorneys. All of a sudden one day, Mike, Rich, and I, we show up to work at Novell, and we're escorted down to the legal office of Novell. And I was going to name this slide different, but I changed it because of the video. I had "you're fired" at the top. We walk in and we sit down, and they handed us a copy of our contract with CompuServe and said, what is this? This is Novell's inside attorneys. And we look at it, and my heart sunk. CompuServe's attorneys accidentally sent, instead of sending these documents to my attorney, sent them to Novell's legal department. I'm like, I die. They said, this is a conflict, and you three are fired. Oh, wow. we walk out of this company that we did love, got fired. We were excited to be able to tell them we were going to leave. I called up my attorney and I said, this is what happened today. And he said, fax it over to me. I sent it over to him. Well, the cover sheet on that fax said, this information is confidential to the parties' names listed above. And then this whole huge paragraph that says what happens if you violate. So my attorney called up Novell's attorneys and said, you've just violated a confidentiality agreement, and we're going to prepare a lawsuit. The next day, the three of us get a phone call from Novell, and they said, your jobs are back. Would you like to come back to work? We said, thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. And not only did my attorney do that, he calls up CompuServe and he says, you know what? You just got my clients fired by doing this. Well, I'll tell you, we got everything we wanted on the contract, and it was signed that day by CompuServe. So things work out. It was amazing how in a week, I lost my job, got my job, and I actually gave 2-week notice, and the contract was signed, and we were in business. And so the three of us left Novell, and actually left on very good terms because our number one big client at the time when we left was Novell, because we were the team that built Novell's website. And so we continued to do Novell for the next 5 years. So things do work out. Maybe not the way you think, but they work out. Now, let me just tell you a little bit of what went on at CompuServe. So we signed this deal. Well, I'm going to wait just a second before I flip this slide up. So we go back to CompuServe. This is September 24th, 1994. It had almost taken us a year. And we're sitting in this conference room, and they had arranged a press conference with the New York Times. I've never been on a conference call with New York Times. We were pretty excited. And we signed our papers. The deal was done. And we get on this call with New York Times. And this is what I heard. The New York Times says to CompuServe, did you invest 10 million, 20 million or more with this company in Provo, Utah? CompuServe says less than 10 million. Well, my partners and I are sitting there holding this contract, and we look at each other and said, we blew it. We had just signed a contract with CompuServe Corporation that took us 8 months to get for $300,000. We just realized we were playing in the big boy arena, but we only asked for peanuts. Oh my goodness. Here, the New York Times thinks we should have been getting millions. A real interesting thing happened though. You can't read it right here, but it says this Provo, Utah company is one of only a few that know how to do internet work. And CompuServe will work with network publishing to help CompuServe's customers establish a presence on the internet. Well, CompuServe had huge corporations. You mentioned Volkswagen, Audi, EMI music publishers. All of a sudden, the phone started to ring, and we were in business going 100 miles an hour. We were 3 people, and we couldn't keep up with it. And we just started to hire people. By the end of our first year, we were 21 people building these websites for these companies. CompuServe just launched us into this space, and we just kept growing, and it was fun. And in 1997, Volkswagen, I don't know if you even know, but they rolled out a new looking Beetle. And it was all done 100% on the internet, and we got to do that for them. It was a lot of fun. We went back to Detroit, we got to drive them, and anyway, lots of fun. This thing just was a dream beyond what I thought we were going to get. Oh, and then I go back to Utah.com. Utah.com was just on the back burner. We had a couple of people in our company that were putting new pictures up and keeping it going. We were making no money, but we had this passion for it, and we kept it running with this partnership with the state. It was all funded by network publishing from all the work that we were getting. Well, we had a problem that arose, and that is we couldn't keep up with the demand. Now, CompuServe, again, was the largest online service provider, and they didn't even know what the internet really was. And I'll never forget, we were sitting in the office, this is back to the day we signed the contract. Maury Cox, who was the CEO and president of CompuServe, comes walking in, just breaks the door walking in, and uses language that I don't use, and he says, "What is going on in here?" He said, "Last week we rolled out a $250 million product on our CompuServe network, and no one's calling us. And we invested $300,000 in this little podunk company," and he goes, "My phone is ringing constantly. What is going on?" So we knew we had done something right. We just knew we asked for the wrong amount. But we made enough to just grow fast, but we couldn't grow fast enough. Volkswagen, after a couple of years, said, "You need people in Detroit." And they wanted us to have an office out there. We put a few out there. They wanted more. We got to this point, we needed more capital. We just couldn't. We had cash flow and cash, but it just wasn't enough. So we hired a broker to help us go out and find money. I've never done that before. And I don't know if I recommend it, but I did it a second time, so maybe it's a good way to find people. They went out and searched everywhere to find us some money. They found a company called IntelliGroup, based out of New Jersey. Their headquarters was in Hyderabad, India. It was an Indian-run company, top-notch people. They came in and said, "You know, we don't want to just invest, we want to buy it. We want to own that Volkswagen and Audi account," because that was our biggest business. So we went into negotiations, and we ended up deciding to sell network publishing. That was hard because we started this thing, and it grew, and it was a lot of fun. So when it came time to sell, here's a question, or not a question, it's a statement of, my advice to you is avoid an earn-out. And if you know what an earn-out is, it's misery. It's just horrible. They said, "Okay, we'll buy your company, and you've been growing like this, and so you say a year from now you're going to be up here, so we will buy you out based on what you do in the next year. You got to hit these numbers that you've proposed." So now they're calling our cards. So we say, "Yeah, we can hit those numbers, but you can't change the company. You got to let it run just as we're running it. And you got to give us some money to help us do the growth that we need." So they agreed. Earnouts are just no fun. So now it's not our baby anymore. It's their baby. They bought it, but we got to hit these targets. And there was a few conflicts. We bumped heads a few times, and we'd say, "Hey, look, don't change that, or we're not going to get these targets." So it was a long year. That was 1998 to the end of 1999. We sold it, and they came in and they took over. By that time, we were over 100 employees. I didn't know how to manage that many people. It was a new experience for me to hire and manage all that was going on. I ended up resigning in February. And this wasn't on my slides, but I'll just throw this one in. We sold out for half cash, half stock in IntelliGroup. IntelliGroup was a Y2K company. Everybody thought that the world was going to end in the year 2000, especially in the computer industry. All computers, everything was 1999, or it'd say 19 and underscore, but they didn't know what was going to happen when we hit the 2000. So this company went around helping major corporations prepare for the year 2000. And if you know, the year 2000, there wasn't even a hiccup. Everything just went in real smooth. But their business was now, they're out of business. They had thousands of employees, but now all of a sudden there's no Y2K problem. That's why they were interested in getting into the internet. But back to that, they bought us with stock, and I know a little bit about finance, and you don't want to sell your stock immediately because you get short-term capital gains. It takes half of it. You know, and that's a lot of money if you got some millions of dollars. Just say $1 million. If someone takes $500,000 from you, that's a lot. So I'm hanging on to it. And I don't know if any of you know what happened in March of 2000. I do. The whole stock market crashed. Anyone in the dot-com era crashed, along with IntelliGroup. So now I wish I would have sold my stock and only got half because it was worthless. So that was kind of a sad point in the career. But I left and decided I wanted to go focus on Utah.com. So that's what I did. And I did Utah.com now for the last 12 years. Let me just see what my thought was here. So here's our last logo, Utah.com. And I've always loved this quote from Zig Ziglar: you can have everything you want in this life as long as you help enough other people get what they want. And that is what drove Utah.com. We'd gone and contacted every hotel, every guide and outfitter, every ski resort. I'll tell you, we've went everywhere. We lifted up every rock we could find, and we worked with everybody we could find in the industry. And they all paid a little bit of money, and that was enough to make Utah.com a very profitable company. And we worked together with a lot of people. I did sell Utah.com a couple of years ago, and I went out on visits with the new ownership to some of the clients. And one of my clients, Colin Fryer, who runs Red Cliffs Lodge. Anybody been down to Moab, to Red Cliffs Lodge, right on the Colorado? It's a great place. He said to the new owners, he goes, "Now I want you to know, the reason I advertise with Utah.com is because we both started at the same time. And we've been partners, and we've helped each other's business grow." He goes, "I've helped Rick, and Rick's helped me. And by doing that, we've been able to grow both our businesses." And he goes, "That's why I still advertise on Utah.com." We went to a few other clients, and we got the same response. And I'll tell you, that's, to me, how I do my business. Is it's a service focus. If I can help everyone else do well, I end up doing well. Utah.com was a lot of fun. The only problem, I wish I had World.com because it was just stuck within Utah. Of course, there's a lot of things I still haven't done. I've got quite a checklist to go down that I haven't done yet. But just to tell you a couple other things that happened. Today, I think every one of you probably for Christmas got a drone. And if you go back to 2005 and 6 and 7, there was no such thing as a drone. But we got this idea that we want to do some aerial video. We found a guy that had a remote control helicopter. It's about half this desk. It's huge. And we were able to mount a camera on that, and we took this thing out. And he was very talented in flying that thing, but we went out and we shot aerial footage before anyone was doing these drones. And we were able to create a new product. So one of the things that all of our advertisers every year would say, "What are you going to do new?" And so we jumped into the video product, and then we had to try all these different things each year. But anyway, that was a big success. When we moved from just photos to video, it tripled our income. We came in and we said, "It's going to cost you," and they all wanted to pay for it. So we were able to find a new way to make more money. One question that I was going to do a slide that said, "Why did you sell Utah.com?" I was asked that. And Utah.com, like I said, it did really well. It got to be real fun. Then we kind of got to a peak. And that peak is your generation. All of a sudden, everything changed. You got drones out there. You've got all the social media. my staff were kind of old timers. We were old time internet hardcore programmers, and everything kind of changed to this new world of social media, smartphones. And we sat down and said, do we want to invest in this? And we made the decision, we don't. I could have. I still ask myself some nights when I'm laying there going, I could be skiing for free today, I could be running a river for free today, and I'm sitting there going, but you just make those choices and you sell it. So I sold it. It's a great, great little business. And I learned a lot doing that. Now, I've got some more time. Maybe do you usually open up for questions and answers?
Yes.
Because I'm going to just kind of throw out one more thing here. So I sold Utah.com actually in 2012. Oh, I told you don't ever do an earn-out. Well, the people that bought it wouldn't do it without an earn-out. So even though I said I'll never do it, I did it. And this time it was even worse. It was a 2-year earn-out. That was the most miserable 2 years of my life. And like your professor here, it just so happened it was so miserable, I got cancer, and I went through chemo during those 2 years. That even just added to the whole thing. Like, why did I sell? But anyway, that's gone, and it's over. And I'm glad I got through those 2 years of earn-out. I learned a lot, though, and it was a lot of fun. Just a couple of years ago, I went to Hawaii with my daughter and my son, and a partner I have in another little business, he happened to be there visiting his son, Jonah. And Jonah is an interesting kid. We decided to go to lunch while we were over in Hawaii and just spend some time, even though we see each other at home, but thought it'd be kind of fun. We get talking about Jonah, and Jonah joined us. Jonah is his son. He has 9 children. And Jonah graduated in construction management and became a builder. And he moved down to Las Vegas, was building homes, and was doing pretty good. Okay, not great, but doing good. And then 2008 hit, and that was the housing crunch. And he decided to sell all he had, and he closed down his business, and he got out okay. And he looked at his wife, and he said, let's move to Hawaii. We like Hawaii. So they moved to Maui. And they found a little fixer-upper inside on the island, not on the beaches, out in the islands in the middle, and got some land, put in some fruit trees. They trade food with the neighbors. He does a few remodeling jobs. After he goes and surfs in the morning, and he goes on hikes in the afternoon. And I tell you this because his brothers and sisters are all saying, we are working so hard so that we can live like Jonah. And Jonah's just living the life. And so I wanted to just kind of close my thoughts here, and then we can answer some questions on, you got to always keep in perspective why you're working. And don't miss out on all the things in the journey. Live like Jonah while you're working. Enjoy it. One of my problems with my pool cover company is I was working 16 hours a day, every day. And I'd always tell my wife, this is for the family, we're going to get ahead someday. And you know what? We missed out on a lot. We just worked and worked and worked. And I want to live like Jonah, where you do some work and you can live and enjoy life. So there's my final thing to you, is live like Jonah, all right? Hey, any questions about network publishing, Utah.com, Jonah? Oh, you're so quiet. Let's talk about how in the world did the Patriots come back? Oh my goodness. You see the poor owners of the Falcons? They were so sad. Yes?
Are you like working on a business right now?
Oh, very good question. Because yes and no. I've got 2 or 3 ideas. I was telling Janet just a minute ago, I had something, I still want to do it, but the guy that I'm working with, the terms aren't what I want, so I just countered him. I don't think they're going to accept my terms. So, yeah, I'm looking at different things. I'm 60 years old, and I keep thinking, do I really want to work? Or do I want to play? Or what should I do? Working is in my blood. I do have something going on right now. I've got a couple of things. I have an office building that I own and manage. I have a project during spring break when you all go down to Sand Hollow Golf Course. If you go and rent some of those nice four-wheeler side-by-sides, the Polaris or the Yamahas, I own those. I'm part of the owner in the company there, and we got a little thing going that's kind of fun. I'll tell you what I'm doing there. We buy these things, we buy so many that we get a nice low rate. We get a fleet rate. So we rent them, and we only put 500 miles on them. They're still brand new. We turn around and sell them as new. We tell people, yeah, they got 500 miles on them, they've been used. But we rent them, we get some rental out of them, and we turn around and we can sell them, and we're making some money. So just a crazy little idea that's kind of fun. So that's what I'm doing. Like I said, I got a couple of other things that I'm toying with, that looking for opportunities. Thanks. Yes?
There's quite a few in here that are looking to start their own business as well. Do you want to maybe discuss what you found through doing pro forma statements versus what actually happens in your business, and maybe some advice as you prepare those pro forma and try and actually gauge the cost and potential revenue that can come in?
You know, it's a great exercise to do a pro forma. I've learned a lot. I do them all the time. When I do any business, I always start with a spreadsheet. And I lay out everything, and I try to just figure out costs. Biggest cost that I always misjudge is people. People are real expensive, but you need them. But I don't have any certain tools that I use besides I just try to think of everything that's going to cost me money, list it on that spreadsheet, spread it over time. On the business plans that we did, they always asked for a minimum of 2 years, if not 3 years. Who knows where you're going to be in 3 years? I had no idea where that network publishing was going to be and what was going to happen. But we still just kind of did a conservative plan, and we tried to follow it. We knew when we asked for that $300,000, that was going to last us about 6 months. Just 3 of us. We hadn't factored in very well on employees. Well, we figured if we hired someone, it was going to be with the other profits that we had. But the business plan is real good too, because it makes you think. You think through your whole business. And if you don't think through it, you're going to get bit. And you always do. And you don't figure out everything, but I think it's very important. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but we spend a lot of time doing that. And every time I started something, we lay out a spreadsheet and figure out if it's going to make money. And we did one, we thought, oh, we're going to make some money on this. ExclusiveUtah.com. So we're doing Utah.com. We've got about 12 really classy places in Utah. I don't know if you've ever been to Amangiri down by Lake Powell. Wow, what a place. I can't afford to stay there. It's $3,000 a night, and it's incredible. So we went to every kind of resort like that, and we did aerial video. We did it all for free, thinking that we could get them on board. And we laid out a pro forma how we were going to make money from all of them. We made nothing. I spent a lot of money doing that one, but lesson learned. The pro forma didn't do what it was supposed to do. Anything else? Yes?
Biggest mistake? You have one?
Oh, all the time. I burned so many bridges. I don't know. You know, it's that back to that first statement of you just gotta, it's from where you sit, you view defeat, and you gotta change your seat. Wow. You know, it's hard. Well, you know, I make tons of mistakes. You and it's like we hired some people for a certain thing. This was the most painful thing. And when it's not working, I had to let them go. And I should have thought better before we hired all these people, then I let them go. Oh, I hate letting people go. That's the worst part of running a company. You have to do it. Like I said, people are the expensive part of it. My dad used to always say, you got to either have money working for you or people working for you. But boy, people are expensive. So have money working for you. And so, I don't know, mistakes would be thinking we're going to be successful in something and hire, and that was one. And I'll say this, but selling my companies, sometimes you can't look back, but maybe that was a mistake. I could have stayed with them and gone better. Oh, I'll tell you one I made. With network publishing, the internet was just exploding, going crazy. A couple of the guys from Novell came to me and said, hey, we'd like to buy your company. They went and reserved the URL, usweb.com. They go, we're going to go around this whole country and we're going to have web shops everywhere and we want you to be part of it. And I'm a real conservative guy, kind of, and I said, nah, yeah, we're going to take it public. Well, they did. It became a multi-million-dollar company. Was that a mistake? I don't know. I'm happy where I was, but at times I'm going, man, I should have done that. Those guys, it exploded. And it was fun to watch them, and it was an opportunity that I didn't go for. I don't know if it's a mistake. Yes?
So you saw the potential for the internet and World Wide Web because you were working in an industry where you were able to understand how it developed.
Yes.
What are some of the potential areas you see as exploding now? What are some of the things you look at and you go, now there's an opportunity?
Well, I'm looking hard for those. I'll tell you, I had 2 employees working for me. One of them, his name's Dave Bascom. Don't know if any of you have heard of Dave Bascom. Dave was doing our search engine optimization. I had a conflict of interest there because we're going down to all the hotels in Moab and said, we're going to make every one of you #1 on the search engines. You can't do that. And so I said to Dave one day, I go, you know what? You can focus on Utah.com, but not all these others. He came to me and he says, I'm going to quit. Do you mind if I do SEO? He went and started SEO.com. Have you ever heard of that? It was the top search engine optimization company. Dave's off playing, having a lot of fun. Another one, Scott Paul, worked for me. And this is a little more in line with where you're at. He started a company called Instafluence. He went out, so he was working for me and he goes, I got an idea. I said, go do it. And he left and he just sold it to Disney. And he's making a ton of money, but he's working with influencers, people who have channels out on YouTube and Instagram. And when they have more than 100,000 followers, he's turned it into an advertising medium and he sells advertising into that. That's an area that I just don't quite understand, and you guys all do, but that's a huge market right now, really big. Anything in the social media world, there's opportunities there. I'm just not sure what they are. I'm just not quite up to speed with it where you might be. Boy, I'm looking, I don't know what's next. I think Tesla's a pretty hot car. I think electric cars is a neat one if you can think of what you can do in that world. But I'm still a big online guy. I love the internet. I'm trying to think of what's going to happen next there, because I don't think it's completely reached this point. So I think there's opportunities there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, pleasure.
Token of appreciation.
That's awesome. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you all. I feel like Brady.
Yeah.
Man, I'll go back to Provo with my head high. No, thank you.